Sit back and relax as today's program guides you through all things pop culture and the deepest corners of the internet. Warning, may cause brain rot.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Brain Rot. I'm your host, Maya Henry, and I'm excited to get into it today. I am wearing my sweatpants again. We're still in this winter season vibe. It's so dark out and cold, but I'm kind of feeling cozy this January. Normally the depression really starts to hit right about now, but I don't know what's been keeping the pep in my step. Maybe just the cozy vibes, maybe the streaming I've been doing on Twitch with Marvel Rivals and Cyberpunk and stuff like that. But I'm keeping my dopamine flowing in many different ways. We're going to get into it. Some of the things that I've purged so far in 2025 in order to ensure better mental health and clarity. Today's episode, we're going to get into a bunch of different topics. I want to talk about things that are happening in the world right now. I want to talk about some think pieces, some movies that I've watched lately. I know you guys always want me to talk about cinema because I did go to film school and I do have a very analytical and critical eye when it comes to reviewing films and stuff like that. So I feel like that would be fun to get into. And of course, as always, we will talk about dating and stuff like that too. We're going to get really into it. But before we do, I do want to talk about the LA wildfire situation. I honestly feel so bad for the Palisades community and everyone else who's affected by the fires as well. The Kenneth fires, the Sunset fire. There's more fires. The embers are flying. The wind is going. There's talks of arson. There's conspiracy theories. It's such a crazy, wild situation to have such a modern metropolis burning and on fire. It shows the power of Mother Nature and how, at the end of the day, we are all at her mercy. It's so sad and terrifying that whole communities can just be wiped out like that. And something that I think is really interesting to deep dive into is the socioeconomic status of the Palisades community, because on the surface level, it appears very 1% wealthy, super expansive homes, and a lot of people are having trouble extending empathy, at least on the outside of LA, because they see it as the rich and famous losing, a small part of their fortune. And in today's climate where things are so expensive, I just feel like it has been a controversial issue. But we also have to address the fact that just because there are tons of wealthy homes in the Palisades doesn't mean we can't extend empathy both to the people affected, but also to the people who are also blue collar workers, who have mom and pop shops, the animals, the schools and the retirement homes. Anything in general that was there is all gone, right? And so obviously, there are some very wealthy people that might be able to be fine after this situation. They still lose sentimental things, right? So I think it's such a devastating, horrifying thing for people to go through. I can't even conceptualize it. Imagine your, town, your whole town, all of a sudden, that your whole way of life, your whole town engulfed in flames, everything's gone, it's cinder and ash. It's like an atomic bomb went off, and I just can't even imagine that. That's so heart-wrenching and disturbing. Most of the accounts that I've seen have been from people who know someone who had a house there. I haven't really seen as many accounts of people who, were born and raised there or, had their home destroyed. Obviously, there's people being interviewed by the news, and that's super sad. A lot of older people. There's a 91-year-old man. His interview was circulating because his entire livelihood, his home, everything that he ever knew is gone. And it's just so heart-wrenching. I think it's so sad. And being unable to control the fires for so long as they get bigger and bigger is truly terrifying. And I don't know, how related it is to climate change. Obviously, as things get drier and hotter, it's much more likely that the fires are going to burn and spread. We've been having this issue for a while. Do you guys remember just a couple of years ago, massive fires in Ontario and Quebec that blew smoke down onto my city, Toronto, made the air smell like barbecue campfire. And then the smoke really amalgamated in New York and turned the sky orange, which was crazy. I think that was June of 2023. Absolutely bonkers and wild. No words, speechless, crazy times that we're living in. And we even have tons of fires in BC and Alberta as well. So there's just a lot of tragedy happening with wildfires. And I even remember in Australia, there was bushfires too that were insane. So I think we need to do a lot of preventative measures volunteers for that, and my heart goes out to everyone. I will leave a few organizations and causes in my description box if you're interested in helping out. I think that's so important because what these moments really show us is how we can have empathy for one another as human beings and form a community, even globally. Something else that's being completely eviscerated is TikTok. I know I've talked about this a bunch and predicted that they would be removing it via Congress or whatever legislations they can in the US. I think that, the time's upon us. It's in 4 days as of me recording this for them to make that decision. Some people are still holding out hope and saying it's against freedom of speech in America, but I really don't think it is. And the issues that they're, talking about with security concerns are very valid and concerning. They were even talking about Elon Musk purchasing it from ByteDance, but that's also not a great option. We've all seen what he's done with X and slash Twitter. And yeah, it's crazy because it really shows how fickle our careers are on social media. I've been doing this for just over 10 years now, and it's wild. I can't think of hardly any other jobs where you are like almost an employee. You're using the platform, you're working with them, for them, you're generating revenue for the company is helping you generate revenue. And you have no rights, you have no contract, you have no employment insurance, you have like nothing with them that's going to make sure that your livelihood can stay in check. So to see all of these people that have relied on TikTok for their income and their careers and have that as their only platform is absolutely devastating. I can only imagine. I tried TikTok for years. It just wasn't for me. I even had some videos go viral. I didn't like the virality of it. I don't know. TikTok never gelled with me 100%. I became pretty addicted to consuming it. I felt like TikTok as a consumer was much more viable than it was for me as a creator, and it really wasted a lot of my time. I deleted it in December. There's been other points in my life I deleted it as well, but that doom scrolling is just so toxic on TikTok, and I just felt my mental health increased greatly once I deleted the app off my phone. My profile still exists there and it's not being removed in Canada, but my prediction is that even though we will still have access to TikTok in Canada, it will not be the same. Let's be honest. Canada is like the little sibling of the USA. Everything that they do is going to impact us. We're going to lose tons of our audience on TikTok. Majority of our audience. There's like what, almost 40 million people in Canada? There's like 400 million people in the USA. They make up the majority of the market. And there has been some talk of people saying that Australia and New Zealand and Europe, they're also going to have TikTok. But baby, we do not create content for people in Europe and Australia. Like, sure, I'm so thankful you guys are here with me, but I'm not necessarily like marketing products to you guys is what I'm saying. You can still consume my content and we can like enjoy this international relationship that we have via social media. But as a career viable option, I can't have a career in social media influencing people in Europe and Australia to buy products. You know what I mean? Like it just doesn't really work like that. So a lot of sponsorships, a lot of ad source revenue is just never going to hit over here in Canada anymore via TikTok because we don't have the US market to advertise to. So it's just not going to work, which is absolutely terrifying. And Canada in general was already like in a hot spot when it came to making money on TikTok. We never really fully realized the creator fund where the Americans could receive money per views on their TikToks and how much traffic they generate. Canada never really got that. They never had it. We never were able to fully monetize. There were some creators in Canada that were getting millions and millions of views per TikTok, and they correlated that if they were living in the US and they were able to make money off of it, they would have been making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, and they were unable to do that because they're Canadian. Crazy, right? So TikTok was never really super viable in Canada, and even more so now. I think it's going to be completely not viable. I think it's going to die out. I think that you can still consume, your favorite Canadian content creators as Canadians, but it's going to become so insular. And on top of that, if your favorite content creators, majority of which are probably American, mine are, yours probably are too, because that's just where they emanate from, right? Whether it's from New York or from LA or wherever, they're going to start posting more on platforms like YouTube and Instagram again. That's my prediction. I don't see this new Asian TikTok pseudo app that's been rising in the North American stores to be a replacement. I think it's just like more of a political stance people are making. It's like a Mandarin app, I think, that's all in Chinese or something. And it's supposed to be like similar to TikTok, but it's not geared towards American audiences. I think it's just people having a reactionary moment. I think they're just going to go back to Instagram and YouTube and stuff. So I think that's what people are going to start gravitating more towards. Reels, shorts, and long form content, which honestly I think is better in the long run for our minds. I think this like TikTok brain rot binge of fast food content has probably not been good for us, even though I do feel really bad for, my fellow colleagues who are social media content creators on TikTok. Like, my heart goes out to you for sure. But I do overall think that it's probably negative, as obviously, like, most social media probably isn't 100% positive. But for me personally, TikTok was like my worst, like, addiction, consumption, and comparison. And so I think net positive. Unfortunately, that's just my take on it. Canada already removed, our offices, and we have no employees of TikTok here. I think it's on the way out completely, which is absolutely wild, seeing such a huge app disappear. But this also relates to one of my 2025 goals and manifestations, and that is to purge things that no longer serve me and become more aware of like what's harming me over the long run. And so I have recently purged some socials, and I'm still in the process of it. I don't know like where you guys are in terms of like what kind of social medias you consume and stuff. We all have different boundaries and barriers for what is beneficial to our lives and what isn't. For me, I recently realized X/Twitter just not beneficial to me. I would go on and the algorithm would feed me rage bait. It would feed me really transphobic stuff. I started blocking some accounts like JK Rowling and stuff because they were just obsessing over people like me, or just in general certain political topics and stuff, misogyny, like all this like crazy like clickbaity stuff. Not to mention just filled with bots. You don't know who the real accounts are. I think there's this huge surge of toxicity on the internet from anonymous people who have over time developed this like caveman mentality of hate. They don't step outside and touch grass, and then they live online, and then that's whose voices are heard the most, because people that are normal and happy and fulfilled are stepping outside their front door still. They're part of real life community, hanging out with people, making friends, establishing relationships. And then most of the noise that you read online is by people who are chronically online and chronically mentally ill and struggling with that cycle of, abuse towards others and themselves. And I feel like X to me was becoming a manifestation of that, and removing any kind of accountability for what people are saying on there, just the most vitriolic things I've ever read in my life. And I just realized, wait a minute, like I might enjoy the dopamine of scrolling through X, and reading like salacious things, but it's really adding no net positive to my life. It's just like the worst clickbait stuff you could ever see in a million years. So I ended up deleting the app, and I already feel 1,000 times better. My reality in life is so much more peaceful and so much more happy than what it would appear online when I'm reading other people's experiences and opinions and things like that. If you close yourself off to the opinions of strangers who don't even know you, then you're going to be so much more well-grounded. And I'm saying this as like a public figure. If I read negative comments too much, it horribly affects my mental health. If I don't read the comments and I live my life every day, everything's simple and peaceful and people are nice, because on average, people don't think those things unless they are having a negative mental health moment themselves. They're online chronically and they just want to tear someone else down who's living the life that they want to have. Another app that I'm considering removing is Snapchat. And that's more from like a dating perspective, in that nothing positive really comes from Snapchat. I've had some interactions with family and friends, and like it's fun that way, but like you can kind of do the same thing on Instagram. Snapchat has, again, another very like clickbaity section to it that's filled with, almost like National Enquirer headlines where you can read gossip on everyone and anything. And on top of that, the reputation for Snapchat, let's be honest, is for hoeing. It's for, having those hookups, those sexual encounters with randoms from dating apps and whatever. It is the classic DL app. I feel like any guy that is to only give me his Snapchat and nothing else is DL, regardless of whether or not it's because I'm trans or because he just wants to like hook up with a girl and not have anyone know about it or hide from a relationship or whatever the reason could be. It's never a good one. And I've realized it just doesn't help my mental health in the long run. Any guy that I've ever spent any time with through Snapchat, it never goes anywhere. And it was never necessarily intended to, but it never leads anywhere positive. I feel like I've realized about myself that I'm not a hookup culture type of person. And it just is a detriment to my mental health to keep something like Snapchat in my vibes, you know? So that could potentially be my next thing that I axe. There was something else I wanted to get rid of too, but let me think about it for a second. The other app I was considering getting rid of is Reddit, which I know sounds a little bit dramatic, but to me as well, Reddit is this toxic place that harbors a lot of chronically online people and a lot of anonymity. Reddit is one of those places where people don't broadcast who they are or what their experience is in life. And so you don't know who you're getting advice from or if the lived experiences are even real. And sometimes you can over qualify people's answers or conversations in your own mind and then start employing those things you've read in your own life as fact when in reality there's no basis, there's no research, there's no formality, and there's no accountability for the person posting it either. And so Reddit to me is this like swirling cesspool of misinformation and fragmented experiences that people share. Like I'm like you guys, like I love reading like the relationship troubles that people are having, like 28 female found my boyfriend watching too much porn. He's a 32 male, you know, like that kind of vibe. And it's like, oh, what drama is this person going through in their relationship? Sometimes it can normalize issues for you, but at the end of the day, it just becomes another gossip rag. And then if you're having issues in your life with mental health or things, sometimes it can be a positive resource like any platform, but by and large, it just ends up being this like self-pitying, self-affirming platform, at least for me. And so I could see myself deleting Reddit as well. I think that they all have the power to be positive, but it's what you do with it and what your dopamine receptors gravitate towards the most. And a lot of mine don't gravitate towards the positive on Reddit and stuff like that. Like all of a sudden, there'll be like a Tinder post and they'll be sharing their profile and they'll be like asking for advice, saying, what should I change? I'm not getting any matches. You click on it, you look, you swipe through, you're like, oh my God, judging this person's profile, being like, wow, like my profile is so good compared to this person's. And it's like, that's not healthy either. That's horrible. It's narcissistic. That's whatever. And so I don't know. It's not a positive platform for me either. And I think that removing Reddit would also add a lot of mental clarity and peace to my life. It's really kind of ironic that as a content creator myself, the more I remove myself from certain social medias, the more peace and clarity I find. For me, Instagram and YouTube are very positive. And I think why that is because I am able to remove myself when I know I have to get stuff done. I'm not too addicted to it. I have fun creating and curating the platforms and creating the content for you guys. And I see it as, you know, a fun hobby and something to enjoy. Whereas the other platforms I see solely for brain rot consumption, and I don't have a lot of positive takeaways. And I would say YouTube and Instagram are the two platforms where you cannot create anonymity. There might be like a meme page or whatever on Instagram, but that's so different than the anonymity on Reddit or on, you know, other platforms. And I think that having accountability for who you're consuming and what content you're partaking in is so important, and it creates more of a human quality than some of the other platforms. Now, I spoke about this a little bit on my Instagram story, but I purged all the dating apps as well back in December. I just like had enough experiences in 2024 to know that hookup culture is not for me. and I was wasting time on the dating apps. I'll be honest, I was never like heavily on them, like scrolling every day or anything like that, but the matches would be crazy. It would be like you have 10,000 new matches, and then you're like swiping through the refrigerator of your matches, and they're not showing you people you're compatible with. They're trying to make you pay for shit so that you can see the people that are actually worth your salt, and it's just like a complete toxic shithole vibe. It's not cute. I don't like it. I felt like I was settling for dates with people that I wasn't actually that interested in just because they were the best person I could find without having to scroll for hours through the matches or whatever. And then there's people who say they never get any matches. Both situations seem terrible from my perspective because you're either scrolling through like a bin of the worst people you could ever imagine to find a needle in a haystack, or you only get, the fringe people and you don't even have the opportunity to find the needle in the haystack. And it's just like toxic, not good, not the vibe. And I want to focus on myself. And so removing all of these things from my life so far has helped with my mental health, I believe. For some reason, last night I was just feeling so confident in myself for the first time in a while, not over analyzing my body, my existence, everything like that, and just being myself. And I had a moment of peace where I was like, wow, all I'm thinking about right now is just like what I want to do this evening, how I want to like play Marvel Rivals and stream on Twitch and just hang out with my friends. And if I want to, I could go out. I don't even really want to because it's cold, but like I could still go out and socialize. And that feels so much more impactful and better than swiping on my phone through apps and feeling like dejected. So I definitely recommend reassessing your boundaries and figuring out what works for you. Another hobby that has opened up for me since removing myself from some of these platforms is watching movies again. Because now that I'm not doom scrolling as much, I'm able to consume longer form content. And I wanted to dive into some of the movies that I've watched this year. I'm going to talk about A Real Pain, which is a film with Kieran Culkin and Jesse Eisenberg. I'm going to talk about The Substance with Demi Moore, Amelia Perez with Zoe Saldana and Selena Gomez. I'm going to talk about Wicked, Challengers, and Woman of the Hour with Anna Kendrick. And those are just some of the films I've seen this year. I want to give you guys my like Cliff Notes review and my Oscars predictions for them because they all swept the Golden Globes, which was something I didn't actually watch much of this year. I'm kind of also like making a resolution not to feel the need to watch every single awards show because you end up wasting so much time, and you can get the highlights, on Instagram or whatever. So I watched A Real Pain recently, and that is a film that's directed and written by Jesse Eisenberg, I believe, and it has a knockout performance by Kieran Culkin. It's two Jewish cousins that are reconnecting and sorting out their differences on a trip that was paid for by their late grandmother who survived an Auschwitz camp, I believe. Maybe not Auschwitz, but like a Poland concentration camp. And they're doing this tour of Poland where she used to live and where she survived, obviously. And it's just this like slice of life family film. It's not sensationalized, it's not crazy, and it's just very organic. And it was kind of refreshing to watch because a lot of media these days, films, television, everything is oversaturated with sex and with relationships and romance. And if you're not in that vibe right now, like I kind of am not 100% in that vibe, this is the perfect film for you because it explores the human connection. It really touches the soul. It goes deep without going sensationalist. And it was just a very beautiful film to watch. If you're asexual, you want the asexual vibes, this film is for you. It's not a sexual film in any way. And I just thought it was like so refreshing. And even having to quantify that and to say that is wild because you should be able to just watch a film like that and not even have to like realize that about it. But there's just so much, like sex and relationship content out there that it kind of makes us feel as if our lives are geared towards that, when in reality, you can have these experiences and these lives that don't necessarily hinge around who you're dating or who you're sleeping with or who you're seeing, And so this was like a refreshing family intergenerational trauma story. And I liked it. It was cute. Was it my absolute favorite? Would I watch it again? Probably not, but I did enjoy it. I could see A Real Pain getting best original screenplay at the Oscars, but I don't really see it getting anything else. Maybe Kieran Culkin could get like best. No, actually, I don't see him getting best actor for this. It's just not that type of role. I could see him maybe being nominated, but I don't see him getting the award. Next, we have The Substance, which, in my opinion, was my favorite film personally that I saw in 2024. I absolutely loved the concept of anti aging and the pressures that we put on ourselves in society, especially the pressures that are emanating from Hollywood, especially now that we've seen a lot of celebrities debut younger, more youthful looks, Demi Moore herself included. So it's a very meta film in that way. Look at Christina Aguilera, look at others. They've really debuted this like more youthful, skinny, and snatched look. So crazy. It's like aging in reverse. And I love the themes that this film explores. I love that this film was not afraid to go very surrealist. It was very like Cronenberg, Lynchian vibes, like very out there, especially the last part of the film. It was camp, it was funny, it was dark. It was everything that I love in film. I could see The Substance getting best makeup and FX and also getting best actress for Demi Moore. And potentially best picture. Those are the ones I could see it getting. I just feel like it was great. It was fabulous. I loved it. And I would watch that again in a heartbeat. I kind of want to watch it right now. I love it. It's so good. Oh, you guys. Love it. Then I also recently, just last Sunday, watched Amelia Perez, which is with Zoe Saldana and it is also with Selena Gomez. But surprisingly enough, I did not realize it was such a transgender heavy topic film, which is crazy. I was watching it and it was wild. It's like a mixture of musical. It's a very unique formatted film. The structure of it is very atypical and it's such a over the top sensational story. I thought it was very well done from a technical perspective. The music, the cinematography, the darkness of it, and the arc of the story. But personally, it wasn't 100% my vibe. And the whole trans narrative in it was so wild and out there that I just don't know how to feel about it in a sense. It's so far removed from my own experience. So basically, Amelia Perez is the name of the trans woman after she transitions. And that's the title of the film. She originally is this leader of a cartel in Mexico, and she's a man. And she enlists Zoe Saldana to help her go to Bangkok, completely resurgify herself, get every surgery in the book that you can get to transition, leave behind her wife and children, and start a new life elsewhere and a new identity while keeping her old wife and children, Selena Gomez, well paid for in Switzerland. And then eventually she reintroduces herself like 4 years later when she's finished healing from all the surgeries and started a new life because she has this forlorn desire to reconnect with the people that she was with beforehand and she wants to see her children again. And it opens up this whole can of worms and she like kind of sneaks back into Selena Gomez's life and like makes her come back to Mexico. She's not a very nice person. I found a lot of the characters very unlikable and I guess that's like maybe the point of the film. But I just found it hard to attach to her or to any other characters. And so I didn't really leave feeling sad or, like I learned much. It was just more like disturbing to me. Did anybody else feel that way that watched that film? Obviously, there was human moments where she was reconnecting with her kids, and the kids say that they reminded her of their dad because of the way she smelled and all this stuff. And like that, those were the touching moments for me. But it was just kind of weird to me that she felt the need to like keep it so secret. But I guess in the society and in the cartel and in the place that she was at, it's like so much more high stakes. So I can't judge. But at the same time, it was just so sensational. It was hard to wrap my head around. And I just had a hard time like connecting with her in that way. It was a very like superficial transgender experience in my opinion, and the ways that she did try to connect were just very misguided to me, and so I just couldn't relate in that sense, but it was a very well done film in the technical aspects. I don't see that film getting many Oscars personally. Perhaps I could see, I don't know if Zoe Saldana would be like supporting cast member. I could see like maybe a supporting nomination or whatever, but I don't see wins at the Oscars personally. Wicked was such a wild ride. I absolutely loved it. Such a talented cast. I think Ariana Grande was much better than even I thought she would be. And their press tour was wild. They were such a pop culture moment. Do I see them winning tons of Oscars? Not necessarily. I could see them winning maybe for their costume design, production design, and maybe if they have an original song. I think we really want to hear the music of Wicked at the Oscars. Some live performances would be iconic, and I think it would be such a miss if they didn't take advantage of that. So hopefully there's something there that can be nominated. Obviously, it's not an original soundtrack or score, so they can't be nominated in that way because they were adapted from Broadway. But I could see them getting Best Adapted Screenplay as well because it was so well done from Broadway to the movie screen. And yeah, overall, it was amazing. I did see it twice, which is crazy in theaters. I never watch things twice. The second time, I was a little bit more bored just because I saw it maybe a month after. And so I think it was just too soon for me. And it's such a long film, but I had fun singing along and I enjoyed it with my sisters the second time, friends the first time. And I'm looking forward to part two. I think it'll be amazing. Next is Challengers. Now, I saw Challengers back in the spring. And so it's been a while, but this was one of my favorite films of the year. Second favorite film to The Substance. Would have been my favorite if I hadn't seen The Substance. I believe it's directed by Luca Guadagnino. Sorry if I'm saying his name wrong. I think it's like French or something, or Italian. I'm not sure. I loved Challengers. I think the score was Trent Reznor vibes. Was it Trent Reznor? Very like David Fincher-esque, electronic underpinning, just very like driving music that was just so iconic. And the cinematography, absolutely out of this park. No pun intended. There was even a shot on a tennis ball as it was moving around the court. The acting was phenomenal. I could see the gentleman with the short curly brown hair getting nominated for Best Supporting Actor and winning. I don't necessarily see anyone else being nominated or winning just because I don't think it was like that type of role for them. But they were all sensational. And on top of that, I could see it winning for Best Director and Best Cinematography. It will be a contender for Best Picture, but I don't think it would win Best Picture. But it's just so stylized, beautiful, and I feel like it's like a film kid's wet dream. We loved these type of films when we were in film school. Just the style of it, the way that all of the elements come together, the music, the cinematography, the acting, the storyline. It was just so well crafted, and I was never bored for a minute. It was such a hot, sexy film, and I would watch it again in a heartbeat. And another film I saw on Sunday was Woman of the Hour on Netflix, I believe, with Anna Kendrick. And now this is Anna Kendrick's directorial debut, I believe, unless she's directed something else. Let me know in the comments. And she also starred in it. It was maybe not my favorite film. I think that for what it was well done and well packaged, kind of like A Real Pain. Well packaged, well presented, very neat and tidy, but not necessarily something super original or super interesting and thought-provoking. It was based on a true story of this man who was going around and basically R-wording women, maiming them and killing them. And he was like a serial killer, right? And so this was a lot more prevalent in the 70s when there was less surveillance and less accountability for catching these type of demons. And so it just like chronologued like how women were dealing with this back in the day. And obviously like how we as women have to be safe even to this day because we never know like what threat is out there. It's that classic debate of the bear or the man, you know? And I just felt like this was a little bit of a repetitive film. It was like they didn't want to give humanity to the killer, right? Like a lot of things do. Like a lot of films will show a backstory for the serial killer and humanize him. They wanted to humanize the victims, which I think was interesting and important, but I feel like it left the villain of the film a little shallow and one note. And on top of that, just repetitive. It was like, okay, we know that he's a serial killer. We know he's going to continue murdering women. And I think we just saw too many instances of him doing it in a row without the story progressing for me to really like see the film as like a full arc. And so I wasn't super motivated to even finish the film, and it was just too repetitive, and there was nothing like surprising about it to me. Like there was no oh my goodness moment, there was no twist, there was no hook. It was just a man murdering people until a woman finally got away and reported him to the police. That was basically the entire arc of the film. It wasn't completely revealed in chronological order, so there was that little, I guess, of a twist, but it just like wasn't that interesting to me, and it wasn't that original personally, but it was well done. Like the cinematography was well done, the acting was good, and you know, you really hated this guy. He was slimy and he was menacing and he was charismatic and he was evil. I hated him. Of course, we're meant to. But that was my kind of review on that one. I hope you guys enjoyed this little film segment. Let me know if you want to hear more reviews in the future as I watch more content. I always have fun because like I went to film school. I have like an analytical mind when I'm watching films. And it's interesting because I find if you weren't working behind the scenes on productions and things and you don't have a concept of all of the moving pieces of the puzzle that come together to make a film, you tend to give away to the reality of the film more so than you do if you understand how it's made. So whenever I'm watching a film, I notice that I am watching the production and the moving parts. I'm thinking, how did they get this sound? How did they get this camera angle, this shot? What technique were they using for this? Did they use CGI here? Is this a prosthetic? Like what are the actors doing in this scene? I'm like watching the background characters. I'm like thinking about the dolly tracking of the camera and all of this stuff. And my friends are just sitting there absorbing the story. You know what I mean? Like it's interesting. In some ways, it's like more simple and more relaxing to not have an idea of how things work behind the scenes. And sometimes I can like ebb and flow out of that and just like forget about that, and enjoy the story. But it's interesting because you have to make the best of both worlds once you do get into filmmaking, because it's going to change the way that you consume films forever. And that was something I really realized during film school. I wasn't able to consume content like that as much because I wasn't able to believe it as easily. I was able to see it more as a production than as a alternate reality, which is what ultimately film wants to do. It wants to create an escapist reality for us so that we can subject our beliefs and our imagination to the world that they've created. Super interesting though and thought-provoking. Overall, today's episode was kind of chill, little chit chat moment. I will be having some guests on soon, and I'll have some more content coming for our Brainwater members. Thank you so much for always supporting me and supporting this podcast. I think we're in this little cozy vibe right now because it's winter, it's January, and as things start to heat up, we are going to really cook that fire. Too soon. No, we're not going to talk about fire right now, but we're going to, heat things up and things are going to get going and be positive, and we're going to see where this podcast goes. I don't know. I'm still holding on to it and I'm enjoying hanging out with you guys. If you have any topics you want me to cover, let me know down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Special thanks to Brain Rot producers.